And Eala, it's been quite a thrill ride for her this last year as well. I feel like last year at this event, it was a little bit of a coming out party where she had some great results coming from a wildcard position as well. So I think the international interest in both of them is so high, and Miami being such a sort of a cultural melting pot.
The Miami Open has entered a state of unexpected chaos, and the name at the heart of it all is Alex Eala. What began as an inspiring breakthrough has morphed into backstage turmoil, with tournament director James Blake allegedly working overtime to salvage plummeting ticket sales and disappearing fan interest. Only a few days earlier, the Miami Open was flourishing. Energy filled the venue, crowds packed the seating areas, and ticket costs climbed to record levels. A major driver behind that explosion was Eala's remarkable tournament performance. She delivered more than victories, she delivered spectacle. Her court appearances became must-see events. Supporters arrived hours in advance, lingered long after matches ended, and generated a level of excitement that elevated the entire competition. James Blake spotted this opportunity quickly. He deliberately scheduled Eala on the premier courts, guaranteeing maximum exposure and, critically, maximum profit. The strategy paid off brilliantly. Eala emerged as the tournament's primary attraction almost instantly, attracting enormous audiences and even greater worldwide viewership, especially from Asian territories. Then everything shifted. Eala's elimination during the round of 16 didn't simply conclude her participation. It sparked a chain reaction nobody anticipated fully. Ticket demand crashed almost immediately. Costs that had soared earlier dropped dramatically. The vibrant atmosphere defining the opening week evaporated within hours. Sources indicate that daily earnings, previously fluctuating between $500,000 and $1 million from ticket transactions and streaming revenue, suffered catastrophic losses. Following Eala's exit, those figures allegedly sank to roughly $100,000 daily. This represents far more than a decline. This signifies total breakdown. The explanation becomes progressively evident. Eala transcended the typical emerging talent category. She attracted an entirely different demographic. Supporters invested not merely in tennis generally, but in her specifically. A substantial segment of that demographic originated from Asia, where Eala's fame has exploded. Her departure caused viewership figures to plummet sharply, dragging sponsorship worth and broadcasting interaction downward simultaneously. Currently, sources claim James Blake is operating in crisis management mode, attempting to restore momentum before the championship round. Blake has allegedly contacted the Women's Tennis Association, proposing an exhibition contest pairing Eala with emerging Canadian competitor Victoria Mboko. The concept is straightforward. Return Eala temporarily, even for a single exhibition, and resurrect the enthusiasm that previously characterized the competition. This maneuver demonstrates simultaneous desperation and acknowledgement. Desperation because the event clearly falters without her presence. Acknowledgement because it underscores precisely how influential Eala has grown within an exceptionally brief time frame. This scenario has precedent. During the Australian Open, comparable circumstances allegedly developed when Eala departed prematurely. Supporters experienced disappointment and the tournament's energy visibly weakened. The desire to witness her compete intensified rather than faded. Reports surfaced of crowds assembling outside venues, anticipating some form of comeback appearance. In a remarkable development, then Prime Minister Anthony Albanese intervened personally to facilitate an exhibition featuring Eala. The political involvement was extraordinary yet effective. The exhibition generated massive interest, restoring attendance and reviving the excitement previously diminished. That successful formula now serves as a reference model.
And seeing the Brazilian fans, I mean, that's what you kind of want, you know. You want that new atmosphere. Same for Eala, having all the Philippine fans from coming, you know, to support her. It's fantastic. And
you cannot play Rafa anymore, but if he would make like 10 times time relation to Rafa, because like you need to have some common sense sometimes.
The identical situation materialized again at Indian Wells, where tournament director Tommy Haas allegedly investigated comparable emergency strategies following decreased audience participation. Although those initiatives never completely developed, they exposed an emerging pattern. Tournament organizers increasingly understand Eala's exceptional capacity to generate spectator enthusiasm. But tournament administrators aren't alone in noticing. Competitors themselves recognize the influence of Eala's participation. Alicia Parks recently discussed her match against Eala, and her description was revealing. She characterized the stadium's overwhelming atmosphere, the volume, the backing, the sheer force of Eala's supporter network. Parks explained that the challenge extended beyond facing an adversary. The sensation resembled competing against an entire cultural phenomenon. She confessed needing to deliberately ignore the audience simply to preserve concentration. That illustrates the psychological weight Eala imposes.
No, that's actually really great that she has so many fans, especially for tennis. It's good. I just remember I didn't even, I don't know, I wasn't even listening to the crowd. I was just focused on the match. But it was crazy out there, so yeah.
Jessica Pegula elevated the conversation considerably. Pegula addressed Eala not merely as a competitor but as something unprecedented. She emphasized the vitality and electricity Eala injects into professional tennis. Characteristics extraordinarily uncommon and extraordinarily precious, Pegula asserted that current developments represent only initial stages. Consider that carefully. If this constitutes merely the beginning, what unfolds when Eala achieves full maturity? Pegula even mentioned interest in featuring Eala on her podcast, not exclusively discussing tennis mechanics, but examining the attention and momentum she generates throughout the sport. Because this transcends match outcomes, this involves transforming the entire landscape. Eala symbolizes something monumental. She's introducing fresh audiences to tennis, particularly from geographic areas historically marginalized within the sport. She's establishing emotional bonds, motivating younger competitors, and contributing excitement dimensions extending beyond numerical scores. That explains why her absence resonates so profoundly in Miami. Presently, the tournament confronts an unanticipated reality. Without Eala, seating sections appear noticeably sparse. The environment feels subdued. The intensity, the excitement, the expectation, everything has diminished.
It's amazing. I mean, I played her when she kind of broke out last year in Miami, and I'm from there, and the whole crowd was against me, and I was like, what on earth is going on? Like, where do these people come from? And then week after week, as she has done well and established herself as a really good player on tour, they all come out to support her. And so I think we saw that in Australia when it was kind of overcrowded. They put her on too small of a court. We saw it here. You can hear it from the hotel. You can hear the crowd roaring, especially at night. So it's incredible.
For James Blake, this situation extends beyond operational complications. It represents a fundamental revelation. Contemporary tennis culture is transforming, and figures like Eala lead that transformation. They function beyond athletic roles. They operate as worldwide phenomena. They determine ticket transactions, streaming statistics, sponsorship agreements, and comprehensive supporter involvement. That clarifies why Blake's alleged advocacy for an exhibition contest carries such weight. The objective transcends revenue recovery. It involves recognizing fundamental shifts in sports operations. However, the authority doesn't belong exclusively to him. Ultimate approval requires both WTA consent and Eala's personal agreement. That dynamic makes this situation exceptionally compelling. Will the WTA authorize such arrangements? Will Eala consent to exhibition participation? Or must the tournament proceed without its dominant attraction? If the exhibition materializes, it could completely rewrite the storyline. A capacity audience preceding the finals, revitalized enthusiasm, another surge of international attention. It would constitute a resurrection narrative not solely for Eala, but for the Miami Open itself. If it fails to materialize, this tournament might function as educational material, a compelling illustration of individual player influence within contemporary sports culture. Regardless of outcomes, one conclusion remains absolute. Alex Eala has progressed beyond rising talent status. She represents a phenomenon. And presently, the global tennis community experiences her significance, even during her physical absence from competition. So what's your perspective on these developments? Has Alex Eala already established herself among women's tennis premier attractions, despite her career's early stage? Do you support James Blake's pursuit of an exhibition match specifically to facilitate her return? Or does that establish problematic expectations for future tournaments? And should the Women's Tennis Association actually authorize this proposal, would you anticipate watching Eala's return before the championship? Or should the tournament advance independently? Most critically, does this represent merely the initial phase of Eala's sporting influence? Or are we currently observing a generational transformation in tennis popularity? Share your perspective in the comments section.